Today we're going to be talking about Savannah Spurlock, who was a 22-year-old mother of 4 who was first reported missing on January 4th, 2019. However, this case has since been solved. Savannah was an excellent student her freshman year of college, but Savannah's life kind of took a different path because she ended up becoming pregnant with her first son, Noah. The second time that she got pregnant was with her boyfriend, Shaq Smith. She decided to temporarily leave school at Eastern Kentucky. Trying to juggle college and raising a baby is a lot of work. I truly cannot imagine now that I'm a parent myself. Savannah ended up becoming pregnant again, and this time with twin boys. And on January 4th, she had every intention of staying home that day. But then the opportunity to go out with some friends came up, and her mom said it was fine, so she decided to go out. And Savannah's plan that night was to meet up with 2 friends, a male friend and a female friend, and the 3 of them were going to go to a bar. But after a little while, the 3 of them actually split up. Savannah and her female friend got in some type of fight. Her female friend decided to leave because of this. And then her male friend decided to leave as well. Now Savannah's at this bar on her own. And this bar is called The Other Bar. I know that's kind of confusing. And obviously being at a bar by yourself is not an ideal situation. It's not always the safest situation. And Savannah did decide to stay there and mingle with some guys that she had met that night. And she actually ended up staying there quite some time because she was seen leaving the bar around 2:30 a.m. when she was captured on surveillance video. And this surveillance video would actually be the last sighting of Savannah before she disappeared. And in the video, you can see her leaving the bar with 2 men. And she was actually with 3 men at the time, but you can only see 2 of them on camera. She did speak with her mother again that night. Actually, she saw her because they did a FaceTime call. It was around 2:45 a.m. Her mom wakes up and realizes that her daughter's not home yet, so she decides to give her a call and check in on her, and Savannah answers. Savannah told her mom that she was fine and that she wouldn't be much later. The call was quick, and when it ended, Ellen didn't realize that this would be the last time that she would speak to her daughter, which is just heartbreaking. This was extremely unlike Savannah to just not come home. If she was ever going to stay the night somewhere, she would, give some type of notice to her mom. Ellen was totally shocked. She tries calling Savannah, but by 8:30 a.m., her phone is turned off. So she decides to call her friend Sabrina, but when she talked to Sabrina, it turns out she hadn't seen Savannah, and she tried calling her and couldn't get a hold of her. In fact, Sabrina tried to call her 15 times that day and was unsuccessful. The police weren't super helpful. They told her that she had to wait 24 hours before filing a missing persons report, which is so unhelpful because they knew that by this point, it's 7 p.m. at this point. They knew that if Savannah was okay and was somewhere, that she would have gotten in contact with one of them, Sabrina or her mother, and made sure that they knew she was okay. Luckily, the Richmond Police Department did take their concerns much more seriously. They were able to pull up that surveillance footage from the bar that she was last seen at and use that to narrow down Savannah's last movements. By Tuesday, January 8th, the Richmond Police Department made its first online post asking the public for help identifying and locating these men who were seen with Savannah in the footage. And they noted that the white male was seen driving a Chevy S10 pickup. So at this point, they launch a full-scale search for Savannah, and that starts on January 8th, and it continues for weeks. And then unfortunately, weeks turned into months until police finally identified 2 of the men in the surveillance footage. And like I said earlier, they did note that there was a 3rd man with the group, but that person was not seen on camera. So one of these guys ended up being someone named David Sparks. So it turns out that after leaving the bar, Savannah takes off with these 3 men, and they take 2 vehicles 40 minutes away to Garrett County. Turns out she got in the car around 2:45, which is about the time that she spoke to her mom over FaceTime, and she sees that she's in the passenger seat of a car. And I guess this group was planning to continue their night of drinking at David's house. These other 2 guys decided to head home for the night, and they leave Savannah with David. Now, something was off about David even to these guys from the beginning. They said that they thought that David was inappropriately touching Savannah. I don't know why these 2 thought it was a good idea to leave her with David knowing this and having these concerns, but they did. They said it wasn't until days later when they found out that Savannah was missing that they started to to feel like it was a bad idea to have left her alone with David. So one of these guys ends up reaching out to David and asks if he knows anything about Savannah. And David claims he has no idea where Savannah went. And one of these guys even told investigators that he felt that David was, quote, unorthodox and weird. So investigators bring David in and talk to him, and he had the same story as the other guys. And Savannah, according to him, decides that she should just stay there for the night, and he decides that she can stay in his room. And he says it was all normal from there. He went to sleep, she went to sleep, but at some point in the night she woke him up and asked for his address, which he assumed was because, she was going to have someone else come pick her up from his house. Then he says he went back to sleep, and in the morning she was gone, and he didn't think anything of it. David quickly becomes their number one suspect, and they eventually tell the public at the same time that they announced that they knew who the guys in that video were, that they were going to be executing a full search warrant on David's home. Now, David's parents also owned a farm in that area, which the police went to search on the 22nd, and they believed that if David had done something to Savannah, that this likely would be the location he would choose to dispose of her body and any other type of evidence. And as you can imagine, her parents were just devastated. I mean, her father said that he didn't know how he could go on not knowing what happened to his daughter. And I just really cannot fathom what that would be like. So finally, there was another break in the case, and this is when investigators executed a second search warrant at the exact location where she was last seen, David's house. Now, unlike their first search, police did end up uncovering several bits of evidence at the house this time. And this is very confusing because it was visible to the naked eye, but there was blood spatter on David's closet door. But they apparently didn't see it the first time, and this time they used some type of special blood detection spray. But anyway, it turns out this blood did match Savannah's DNA profile, and this changes everything. And obviously that's huge evidence, but that wasn't all they found. They also found a very strange note written by David that was just sitting on his bedside table, and it reveals some very dark things about him. It says, "I simply don't care at all. I feel no true love for anything now that I know who I really am. I see a greater need to hide my true self, but I just want to be free. I stay in a constant state of aggression. Nothing seems to help anymore. I have an abyss for a soul that sucks every attempt to make myself whole. I want my family to understand, maybe just to excuse my other actions over the years. But how do you look your mother in the eyes and tell you are a born psychopath? That she gave birth to a monster, someone who wouldn't care a bit to squeeze the last breath out of another human or plunge a knife into their chest and smile about it. My mother, the only person in this world that I never want to disappoint, yet I see it on her face every day. What do I do?" Obviously, that is a very concerning letter and tells us a lot about what is going through David's mind and the type of person he might be. Clearly, investigators bring him in right away to ask him about this note, and of course, he has an explanation for it. He says that it was written 2 years ago and that he wrote it at a time where he was struggling because another woman had rejected him and he was kind of heartbroken and going through a hard time. But investigators don't really buy that, and this is just another indication that they are going after the right person. On July 10th, 2019, David's father was outside in his garden when he noticed an extremely foul odor. By this point, he knew that his son was the prime suspect in Savannah's disappearance, and he was fully on board with helping the police nail down the evidence that they needed. They actually got out to the property around midnight on July 10th, and this is when they ended up finding Savannah's body in a strawberry patch. So after this, it only took hours for David to be placed under arrest for the murder of Savannah Spurlock. And in addition to murder, he was also charged with tampering with evidence and abuse of a corpse. And at first, he tried to plead not guilty despite the overwhelming amount of evidence against him. They also found out that David had been following the investigation thoroughly. They found tons of internet searches for Richmond missing mom, and he was clearly worried about it, knew that they were onto him, knew that his time was probably limited. This is heartbreaking, but Savannah's official cause of death has never been released because it's never been determined. David actually changed his plea to guilty. He pleaded guilty to murder, tampering with evidence, and abuse of a corpse. And this plea was part of a deal that would require him to serve a 50-year sentence rather than the possibility of life in prison. David will be serving his 50-year sentence, which I do not think is enough, at the Southeast State Correctional Complex in Kentucky. And he will be eligible for parole on July 2nd, 2039, or possibly even release on November 13th, 2068. It's just so infuriating. There was absolutely no need for this to happen, for this mother of 4 to be taken from her children, from her family when she was so young. It just brings tears to my eyes. It's unbelievably messed up to think about how avoidable this whole thing could have been, and it's terrible. If you are interested in learning more about Savannah, the Remembering Savannah Facebook page has several posts from family members over the years that detail, what an amazing person she was, an amazing mother she was. There are so many stories about, good memories with her and about her strength and determination, even though she was dealing with so much at such a young age. I am glad to hear that, her other family members are very involved in raising her 4 sons, and that they are loved and will probably always be told so many stories about how amazing their mother was. And for all 4 of them, living without their mother on the day-to-day has got to be so awful, but I can't even imagine how hard it must be for her family knowing that one day they will probably learn the truth of what happened to their mother and how just heartbreaking and traumatizing that would be. Her family hasn't made any public statements about all of this or how they're doing since she passed, but her Aunt Lisa did say that they really feel like Savannah lives on through her sons, and I thought that was very beautiful.